Hello and welcome to the Hellraiser blog. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed today's Hellraiser blog, hit the subscribe button and please also hit the notification bell so that when I put the blogs out, you receive a notification. Found increasingly, certainly of late, people messaging me, asking me, oh, am I going to do a blog on such and such a fight? And it's a fight that I've already done the blog for and it's up on the platform already. They just haven't seen that it's there. Anyway, the fight that I'm going to look at today, very intriguing fight. Saul Canelo-Alvarez, the Mexican superstar, against Danny Jacobs. Fight that has been in the making for a long time. Many people, I would say myself included, felt that Canelo seemed to be intentionally steered away from fighting Danny Jacobs. What's happened now is Canelo signed with DAZN. Eddie Hearn set up this deal with the DAZN platform. And almost immediately the fight with Jacobs has been made. It reminded me instinctively, I remember back, I think it was in like 2002, something like that, when Mick Hennessy had his BBC deal. I think it was called something like the Class of 2002. And Eddie Hearn seemed to inherit the guys that had been very carefully built up by Mick Hennessy, or some of the guys, and immediately were thrown into very hard fights. I'm talking about like Carl Froch. There was a number of them that came through that class of, I think it was 2002, and I felt a little bit the same here, because I thought, right, they signed Canelo, and straight away they've gone into the fight that, and for me it touches a bit of a nerve, because obviously I'm in the business of building fighters up, and quite often I'll build a guy up, I build them up, and suddenly a big promoter comes in, gets in the ear of the fighter, promises them all these wonderful things are going to happen if they sign with them. Fighter signs with them, and they get put immediately into the exact fight that I never would have taken. I remember a guy, Brad Watson, I managed. We protected him. He was treated with cotton wool the whole way through. Suddenly he wanted to go elsewhere. The first show after he left, they put him in with a guy called Brett Fido. I can't remember his name. Brett Fido. And Fido, managed by John Pegg. John used to ring me up every show. Can we put Fido in? I've got him, he's ready. Why are you bringing in someone from Georgia to fight Watson? I've got Fido right here. I used to say to him, you know, never ever. That fight will never happen. It's not even worth making the phone call. That fight can't happen. You know, Fido, he had a losing record, a really good fighter for you know, the record he's got, very deceptive. Anyway, first fight, when he signed with his new promoter, I got him to about 10-0, something like that. First fight, I saw Fido. He's fighting Brett Fido, and Fido knocked him out. I think it was in the first round. I think it was the first round, first or second round. Knocked him completely spark out. And this is going back to what I was saying about Eddie Hearn, is when you've built the guy up right from scratch, or you've been working, you've had a working relationship with the boxer for so many years, you can't help but form a bond with that boxer or that person, and you want to look after them, and you know them very well, so actually you can work for them very easily. You can make the right decisions for them. When someone just comes in, you know, and I mean, you can bet the people that came in that were sort of speaking to Brad Watson, for example, I bet they're not ringing him now, you know, because now they've moved on to someone else and they'll be promising that other boxer, you know, all these wonderful things. But what happened with the guys like Froch and Darren Barker was one. They were plunged in hard fights very quickly, and I think that there could be some of that in here with Canelo, because when it was Golden Boy controlling everything for Canelo, and I for one felt, yeah, they're avoiding Danny Jacobs. That's got to be a decision. It's not just by chance that the fight's never getting made, and this guy's sort of continuously hovering in the top of the ratings, but never seems to get the actual fight, and everyone else does. That has to be a conscious decision that they've taken. Suddenly, signs of DAZN, all these wonderful things are going to happen. First fight, you've got Danny Jacobs. Which the fighter will agree, because the fighters, this is the thing, their mentality, I mean, as a manager of the fighter, you're trying to promote confidence within him, get him to believe in himself, so he believes he can do it, because if he doesn't believe himself, he's got no chance. But then they believe it maybe a little bit too much, and they'll fight absolutely anybody. Right, anyway, back to the Canelo-Jacobs fight. I mean, I think It's not the fight, me personally, I would have chosen for Canelo. I'm not saying necessarily that he loses it, but Jacobs has a lot of the assets to make Canelo look very ordinary for long periods of the fight. I say long periods of the fight because the thing that really strikes me is to win it. Right, let's go first to the heights of the boxers, and you'll understand where I'm going with this. So Canelo Alvarez, 5'8" tall, reach of 1.79 m. Danny Jacobs, height of 5'11.5", so he's a lot taller, and 185 centimetre reach. So he's got a lot longer reach as well, 6 centimetres, meaning that Canelo has to walk him down. Well, not a problem. Canelo's walked lots of people down. Danny Jacobs needs to keep it long. For him, probably not a problem because that's a tactic that he likes the most as well. Keeping it long, moving sideways, using his speed, his agility, his switching of angles, and he actually likes to walk people down himself. However, in this fight, I think there's a few issues that really push me heavily in the direction of Canelo. First, Cinco de Mayo. It's the Mexican independence holiday. I've been in Las Vegas many times when Cinco de Mayo comes up, and Canelo fills Las Vegas on Cinco de Mayo, 5th of May. And to go and get a win there as an away fighter, which is what Danny Jacobs effectively will be on the day, because even if Eddie Hearn have like affection for Danny Jacobs through working with him, very quickly I think the numbers, the business that Canelo brings in would sway that loyalty, would make any businessman realise, right, well, the meal ticket here is Canelo. The business is Canelo. The future has to be based around Canelo, not Danny Jacobs. Maybe they can get more control over Canelo for a short period of time if Jacob beats him, and then they have to go back asking, they want a rematch, and obviously they can really optimise the earning potential there for themselves and for Jacobs. But look, Canelo's a guy who's made a career of beating tall, gangly guys. He's a typical Mexican. And can you keep a top level, because Mexican boxing goes from the very bad at the bottom to the very, very good at the top, and in Canelo you've got one of the very good guys who's at the top. And can you, on pure boxing, because Danny Jacobs is very much a pure boxer, technical, a very good effective boxer, but can you beat a top level Mexican purely on boxing ability for 12 3-minute rounds? I'm not convinced you can. I think in the fight at some point there comes a part where it actually stops being a technical boxing match and it starts being a fight against someone like Canelo, because he walks people down. That's what he does. That is his tactic in most of his fights, is to grind people down. Obviously against people like Golovkin that's tough, because Golovkin does the same thing. But if we look at the form lines, you look for Danny Jacobs, his 2 defeats, Dmitry Pirog. Right, Gennady Golovkin and Dmitry Pirog both beat him. Now, Pirog and Golovkin are East European fighters, but they're not typical stiff-armed, upright East European boxers. These are guys that have evolved in the American boxing style very much. They move their head, they roll, they throw lots of body punches, they swarm, and these are the guys that beat Danny Jacobs. Well, do you see where I'm going now? You're going to have Canelo, is there a fighter who swarms, who rolls, who fights inside better than Canelo at middleweight? Absolutely not. And if I had to choose out of who was the better roller and walk down fighter between Pirog and Canelo, I'd go for Canelo straight away. Well, Pirog knocked Danny Jacobs out, stopped him heavily with a right hand, and I think that is the reason that I sway in this fight towards Canelo. I think early on, yes, Canelo can be made to look quite pedestrian and maybe even drop some rounds, while Danny Jacobs can outbox him in the short term. But you can bet that from the very start, Canelo will be forcing the pace. He'll be forcing Danny Jacobs into making moves that he doesn't really want to be making at that early stage in the fight. That'll mean he gets worn down, and I think Canelo will grind him down because of that. I'm going to go for a points decision for Saul Alvarez, for Canelo. I think that Danny Jacobs has actually improved since the defeat to Pirog, and that's why I think he'll last a bit longer. Even though Canelo is better, I would say, than Pirog, I think that Jacobs has come on. He's more ready now for the fight, and that's how he'll last the distance. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the blog, please hit the subscribe button. I look forward very much to seeing you again soon on the Hellraiser blog. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye bye.